Welcome to Module 3 of Leading Remotely during COVID-19. This is about keeping your people focused on their deliverables whilst working remotely, and that can be quite tricky. It's not as easy as it seems working from home. Many of you are finding that out. There are a lot of distractions around, and sure, you don't have to travel to work, so you do gain some time. But you can also lose time with the many distractions. So this module is all about how do you help your people keep focused, and it's vitally important that you remind people again, like I said in module 2, how important their work is. So that's one tip to keep them focused, and asking them good questions to keep their focus is pretty important. They need to know that they are actually being held to account during this period. In the absence of somebody sort of caring about us and holding us to account, many may slack off, not because they are bad human beings, but because they are human beings. So we all have this tendency to I guess get demotivated unless we know that our work is important. So that's intrinsic motivation, and that we know that we're being held to account for that work. That's how we know our work's important, when we're actually being held to account. So I've got a number of questions that you can ask your team members to remind them that they are being held to account, that their work is important, and to help them think through how they're going to be productive and focused on their work whilst they're working remotely. Now, the questions I'm about to share with you should be asked after you've checked in with their feelings. So in the last module I talked a lot about checking in with your staff's feelings. So before you go into deliverables and areas for focus, it's really important that you check in with their feelings so that they know that you care. When we know another person cares about us, we're more likely to, what's the saying, move heaven and earth for them. So here are once you've checked in, here are some questions that you can ask. So what are your delivery commitments for the week? That's the first question. Second is, what is your focus today? Now this one, you might not be talking to your people remotely every day, but this could be a simple text, a message. What is your focus for the day? Now that question does two things. It lets them know that you're interested in the answer to that question, and it also helps them focus for the day. What are some of the things that you can do to minimize distractions is another good question. How can you best communicate boundaries with others living at home? This is a great question, and let me just pause there to talk a little bit about boundaries. We don't usually set them. We don't usually have those conversations. What I've seen happening is we're now working from home, and if people are irritating us, unconsciously of course, then what tends to happen is that we get frustrated and we hold it in our body, and then that frustration builds and builds and builds. Now when the frustration builds to a point where it just has to come out, we do a number of things. One of them is to explode, to yell. Most likely if you're an extrovert, you'll explode. If you're an introvert, you'll implode, which means going in and stressing out your body, putting stress on your organs. Or we turn to, as I said in my last video, as we turn to alcohol or junk food or other things to give us a dopamine spike. The neurotransmitter dopamine gives us a quick hit of pleasure. We don't want to be doing that. So a way to minimize our anxiety so we don't get to a point where we're exploding or imploding is to communicate our boundaries with the people that we're living with. Yeah, so sitting down, having a conversation and sharing with each other what each other needs during this period. A lot of you've got kids. Kids can be bloody noisy. So how do you make a compromise there? How do you have a talk with them and find out what periods are good for you for them to be quiet and what periods are good for you for them to be noisy, and vice versa? Because, you know, we all need a little bit of noise too, but not when you're doing important conference calls with customers. I get that. So helping your people or planting the seed with your people to have conversations with the people at home about boundaries it's the work of leadership. Yeah. Ask again, how can I help? Just simply asking that question is going to put the other person to ease, because you're showing that you care. They might say nothing, but just simply have been asked that question is a wonderful thing. Now, if they come back and say, well, you can help in this way, and you can't give that, you can say, yeah, I can see that would help. You know, I'm sorry that I can't give that for these reasons. But what I can do is X, Y, and Z. Yeah. But asking the questions, really important. It shows that you care. So they're my tips for keeping people accountable. Or I should add one. If you're going to ask them what their focus is for what their delivery commitments are for the week and what their focus is for the day, make sure you double back and ask them, how did you go with that? How did you go with your focus? And then you can have, whether it's by message or video conference, have a conversation to help them if they didn't achieve their focus. And when I say help them, I don't mean telling them what to do. I mean asking them good questions. So you didn't achieve your focus. What got in the way of it? What could you do differently tomorrow? And how can I help? Yes? Great. So they're my tips on how to keep your people focused whilst working remotely. The next module is going to be about having difficult conversations.